Welcome everybody to the Elizabethtown City Council work session for August 12, 2019. And if you would, please bow your head in prayer with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another wonderful day here in this community. We thank you for all of our citizens and the input that they give us to make this a better place. We ask that you watch over our school-age kids as they go back to school, elementary school, middle school, high school, and we ask that you watch over our college students as well, many that are returning this week and next. We also ask that you watch over our first responders, our fire, our police, our EMS, and all of our city employees who are public servants. We ask all these things humbly in your son's name. Amen. Amen. At this time, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we have a very special guest today. I'd like to ask JT Bryan if he'd come up to the podium, Chief Malone if he'll come up with me as well. I want to talk about this young man for just a second. I'm very proud of him. Some of you all may have read in the paper, heard on the radio or on the news the other day about residents in Nicholas Ridge where we had a pretty large fire that ended up burning the house up for the most part. And so our friend JT here was having trouble sleeping that night, decided to go out for a drive, and he ended up over there close to Nicholas Ridge subdivision. And he saw some smoke coming from that area that looked too big to be a bonfire. So he drove up there to see what was going on. At that time, he realized that the front of the house in question was on fire. So correct me if I tell the story wrong. But he gets out, he goes to the back door where it appeared to be safe still, bangs on the door for quite some time. Nobody was moving inside the house, and the dog inside the house started barking. Is that correct? And luckily, when the dog started barking, the three people that were inside, 2 adults and their 7-year-old daughter, woke up and figured out that their house was on fire, and it was getting pretty bad and in bad shape. And they came down the steps, and outside, the little girl, I think because she'd been asleep, was still in her pajamas or in her underwear. And my friend JT here even took his own shirt off his back and put it on that little girl. And they were all able to escape the house, and it was basically, I mean, I don't like to use fire terms, but a total loss. If I'm correct, you can describe it better than I don't care. Chief Malone.
We arrived on scene about 5 minutes after we got the call, and it started on the exterior of the house, so there wasn't a lot of smoke originally inside the house to cause the smoke detectors to go off. Most of the fire ran up the front of the house and across, got up into the attic, ran across the interior of the house. So if it hadn't been for JT, that they may not have been alerted in a early enough manner for them to have gotten out safely. So kudos to you for coming in, banging on the door, get the dog, get everybody out. But fire doubles in size about every minute. So every minute that in question, the fire was growing twice as big each time. So if he hadn't been there in a timely manner, and we show up 5 minutes after the phone call, it could have been a lot worse outcome. So congratulations.
So I thought it was a remarkable effort by an 18-year-old kid that was out for a drive to have the wherewithal and the courage to go up there and do that, because I don't think all kids would do that. Some may not even worry about what was going on, or they would go about their business, but I want to tell you that I'm very proud of you, and I thought that was outstanding. And the Lord puts us in places sometimes for the betterment of our community, and that's definitely what happened to you that morning. So congratulations. We appreciate all that you've done. With that being said, we have done a proclamation. Know ye that Jesse T. Bryan is proclaimed an outstanding citizen of the city of Elizabethtown due to a brave and selfless act of heroism to alert a family of their burning home. This recognition and proclamation is made this 12th day of August 2019 by me, Jeffrey H. Gregory, Mayor of Elizabethtown. So I want to give this to you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. I wanted to recognize JT at a regular session council meeting, but he is leaving for Wabash College. What day, JT?
This Friday.
This Friday. So he wasn't going to be here next Monday. So we were glad to be able to get him in, but I think this is indicative of what kind of youth that we have in this community, and for everybody that says that the next generation's in trouble, I think he's a perfect example that that's not always the case. So thanks again, we're very proud of him. Our next order of business, Veterans Way zoning changes, Jim Shaw.
Yeah, top that, Jim.
At your next regular meeting, there will be a series of zoning map amendments for the portions of the Mauser property on the north side of town. And because it's a somewhat complicated request, Ed and I thought it'd be best if I came before you this afternoon and gave you a sneak peek of what's going to be in front of you. Provided you with a portion of the zoning map that shows the area. And I'll start on the right side, the purple area, which is currently zoned I-1 industrial. At the northern part, there's a piece of land about 1.5 acres in size that fronts on Cabinet Lane. That is currently or most of it is a gravel parking lot, if you're familiar with the area. They don't expect to need that for future industrial expansion, so they're requesting to change that to C3 general commercial. Then at the southern end of the current I-1 property, there's a small triangle that's about 1/4 acre in size. Again, this is something they don't need immediately for the current industrial development, and if they combine that with the C3 property to the south, it'll help sort of square up that property and provide more useful space for a commercial development. Then moving to the west, the area that's outlined in white, that is immediately to the west of the current manufacturing facility. It's zone C4, and they are proposing I-1 industrial. They do not have any current plans for expansion of the plant, but this is the only logical way for them to go in the future. So they wanted to set aside that land so it's available. And also by rezoning it now, it lets other development that might occur around it know that it's already zoned for industrial. There could be a future expansion to the plant there. And then moving on to the west and southwest area that's shown in the dark red, currently zoned C4, and they're proposing C3. The C3 zoning would match much of what's out there along North Dixie, and to the south of this on a portion of Veterans Way. They are initially proposing to create 3 new lots that would front on Veterans and be available to any sort of C3 use that we might see along North Dixie. They don't have any prospects signed at this point, but they will develop the land and make it available. And then moving on up to the, there's a thin area of PNR1 zone, which is the light blue, and they are proposing that also to be C3. And if you notice the ragged looking dividing line between the current PNR1 and C4, that is generally the outline of a creek that runs through there. There's also floodplain in that area, and they are proposing to use that for a regional detention basin. And again, the idea is to make that C3 so that it corresponds with the rest of the C3 property and can serve as a buffer to the PNR1 to the west and northwest.
Jim, can you explain PNR1?
It's planned neighborhood residential. A variety of residential uses could go in there, but it does require a master plan to be approved by the planning commission before development occurs. But there are no changes to the bulk of that PNR1 land at this point.
Just a narrow stretch there along C4 area, is that just the area that you're going to be changing to C3? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes,
Along that blue line?
right. And it'll, once they go through the zoning change, there will submit some subdivision plats to divide and also combine some of the property. So the sliver of PNR one,
Just that little, just that, no, just that little, just that. This piece here.
That's living on the grid.
No, it wraps you around.
From the basin down to the C, toward C3. We all see through.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. So I see what you're saying. That little sliver of light blue, would end up turning to that brown.
Come to C4, C3.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
and those will be combined
Rest of
for
the
the,
city stays on Oxford.
those will be combined for the regional detention and also to provide a buffer between C3 and industrial and the PNR one.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Next, Mauser annexation, Ed's gonna talk to you a little bit about that.
And this kind of fits right in with the mapping that Jim just went over with you all. But the Mausers, through their development company, which is called Ski Partnership, have sent a letter to the mayor asking that we annex additional property that they own in this area, some of it along South Wilson Road, some of it along the Veterans Way, Wise Lane area. So if you're looking at the map we just passed out, to the north or of the page, or to the right-hand side where it says Cabinet Lane, and that area is outlined in red, that matches up with the area on the zoning map that Jim just went over to you that's listed as NIC, which means not in city. So that's the piece. As you can see, we totally surround that one lot with our corporate limits now. So we would incorporate that piece. And then the Mausers have bought 3 pieces of property that have, like I said, either frontage on Wise Lane or Veterans Way, just to the west of where the new C3 boundary is. You can kind of hopefully see the tree line matching up where we've outlined that in red too, and it's labeled Wise Lane. That actually is 3 pieces of property. What that will allow the city to do is actually join property that the Mausers own with property over on Robin Brook Boulevard. If you'll notice on the bottom of the zoning map, it's kind of a pinkish color. That's where the red line matches where it's labeled Wise Lane. So that, again, we're filling in some gaps that the city has on the north end of town is what it amounts to. I don't know that Matt and Virgil have been here when we've done an annexation yet, but the procedure is that the planning commission will hold the hearing first to determine zoning on the property, and then the actual annexation ordinance and the zoning will be presented to you all at one time with a consent agreement from the Ski Partnership, the Mauser Family Partnership, agreeing to the annexation. The benefit for the property owner is that shortens the annexation time period by about 60 days. The benefit for the city is that we know somebody's interested in annexation and there won't be any opposition to it. So that most of the annexations that the city has done for the last 10 to 15 years have all been by consent. So, but you all will probably see it maybe November or so. It just takes that long to get through the process.
Okay, Scott Reynolds, I'm talking about the control system.
per your all's request last week, we looked at payback numbers for the HVAC control system. Want to start this off with saying there's a lot of assumptions that go with this unless we go and individually meter each HVAC piece of equipment to get the true electric use. So I've done my best with standards that the industry has to come up with a payback for this entire control system. So the first page is kind of a recap of the police department, state theater, and wastewater treatment plant. That's savings per year that we can anticipate by going to this new control system. And then that's the yearly savings is how much total for all three buildings. Total cost of the project's $114,000. So a simple payback in quick terms is almost 9 years to do this. So we can go through each individual. The next page is police department. We looked at the electric and the gas. It's really hard to figure out exactly how much of the total electric bill is used on HVAC. Like I said, using the industry standards. I'm kind of lowballed that at 40% of the HVAC for this building, or electric use is for HVAC. Industry is between 35 and anywhere up to 70% for an office building. Gas is a little bit easier to figure because you can look at your summer load, how much you're using during the summer, and that's about how much gas you're using to heat water, and then you can figure out the cost of how much you're using for your HVAC. As you can see, our payback on the police station is going to be about 17 years for this building, only because we use this building quite a bit, and that's assuming that we have very little night setback, which I think those numbers can be reduced even further with picking out what spaces, admin's not used in this building 24 hours a day, and the garage isn't, so I tried to be as conservative as possible on this, to give you all the worst case scenario.
And just a refresher, the cost for that system here was what, about 59,000?
Yes, ma'am. I don't have the breakout right in front of me, but it's somewhere in the 50 to 60,000. This is a lot bigger building. It's more complicated on the HVAC, so the cost is going to be higher to redo the controls here. State Theater is next. See total savings there, payback of about 8 years for the State Theater. And then the hardest one to kind of figure out is the wastewater treatment plant, trying to figure out how much of their electric is used for HVAC. I assume 2% of that building is HVAC usage for their electric, but that's also the lowest cost for controls. You can see that payback's about 3.23 years. So those are just real quick numbers. Like I said, we could do a more in-depth study, but tried to get it back to you all as quick as we could so we could continue having dialogue and figure out what we're going to do with this. So here to answer questions.
Like the pondering stuff.
Pondering, I just did that good of a job. Like I said, these are all simple paybacks, so there's not, it can get a lot more complicated than this, but I just tried to do a real simple payback.
I was moving the motor first. I will just been up there like that.
Thank you all.
Hey, Scott.
Skip, why did you say on the police station it's such a long payback period?
Because the cost savings is gonna be less than the cost of doing the systems more.
They basically already got some type of a program here, correct?
We do, it's aging and it needs to be replaced. But because it's more of a 24-hour use type facility, it's gonna be harder to put all the units into unoccupied mode. And that's really where you get your bang for your buck on HVAC controls is dropping it back to unoccupied and letting the temperatures get hotter or cooler depending on heating or cooling season. So with this being more 24 hours a day, there's certain areas we can do unoccupied, but it's hard to figure out until I get into the nuts and bolts of the system and figure out which ones we can do. We can put in unoccupied mode.
It's kind of interesting because if you go back to July of 18, usage, the electric bill between State Theater and Police Department is pretty close.
Right, and this is 2 to 2.5 times of a bigger facility than the State Theater.
Scott, did you say that, I know working here, years gone by, somebody used this room, they've got the air cranked down, they walk out, they leave it like it is during the summertime. Is that something that can be preset?
Each facility, so the chief here can designate somebody to schedule this room. So if somebody's here from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night, then we can schedule the room to be occupied for that event. And then as soon as 7 o'clock comes and we think, everybody's leaving, then this room would go back into unoccupied mode, no matter what that thermostat's set at. And we're gonna do the same thing at the State Theater. So right now, that's the component that we're really missing, and that's where we're gonna see our savings.
That's my section.
Every research study I've looked at, University of Pennsylvania, University of Michigan, all the way down through the falls, said the average savings just for the HVAC was between 20 and 35%.
Correct.
So and that's huge when it comes to saving our taxpayers money.
It is, but it's a huge price to put it in too.
I think that was just awful. And the one that bothers us, I guess, is this building here. Because the payback is so long, 17.4 years, you're just now telling us that the old system is at end of life. How long has it been here?
Since this building was put in
15 So
15
every
years.
15 years, you've got to build a new system.
Well, hopefully we're putting in a better system this time.
Yeah, but I mean, technology changes about every 6 or 7 years.
So,
I'm not.
if you're gonna look at it from a technology standpoint and how quick the technology is changing for HVAC controls or our computers or anything else, then paybacks are really hard to look at. I mean, by the time we get new computers and get them to people, it's time to replace them, right? And that's leasing. So, I mean, that's the problem with, it really changes and it changes quick, but I think it's very important for the city to get our buildings under control, get them all under one control system for the entire building or the entire citywide, so that we can maintain them, we can operate them, we can do everything we need to do correctly.
And I understand that, and I think you're right, and I know that the police station being involved or being tied into the restaurant would be more convenient, and it just makes everything good, I understand that. $59,000 at 4% for 17.4 years will equal $115,000. So that's the future value of the $59,000. If we were to simply let the $59,000 set, accumulated interest, $115,000. So how much are you gonna save then? You get my drift here. How much money do you spend in order to save $59,000?
But we're also looking at the electrical savings of today. This building, the longer we let these controls get outdated, the more electricity we're gonna use, because exactly what Councilman Willoughby said, people are gonna crank their thermostats down and we're not gonna have control of it. Our boilers, our cooling tower, our pumps are gonna run longer and run longer because they're not under control anymore. And that's really where we start saving money, is when we tell the cooling tower to shut down, when we tell, 25 horsepower pumps to turn off, when we tell boilers when they should come on and when they shouldn't come on.
No, I understand that, and I agree with all that. I'm just saying,
It's hard to compare today's numbers with I think that.
Scott, you're doing an assumption that we wouldn't do anything. There's other options out there that we can control that with that doesn't cost us.
Any kind of system is gonna be in the same neighborhood to control this building because of the type of systems that we have here. It might not be 59,000, but it's gonna be 45, it's gonna be 49. So your savings by going to a different control system, besides putting additional burden on the facilities department, it isn't really there, not in my opinion. That's not stated in fact. I haven't bid it out that way. We sent this out publicly, out to bid, we only got one bid. But that's because we're a little tied in the tree. And that's, like I tried to explain last week, it's really difficult to have a bunch of different control systems with as many buildings as we have. Not that, I'm not saying we can't do it, but I didn't receive a single phone call when this was out to bid from any of the competitors for the contract.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you all.
Ed, did you want to talk about?
Yeah, we've, would like to hold a joint meeting with the Tourism Commission just to talk about projects and those kind of things. We felt that it may serve both groups better if we do it outside the budget process, so that we just don't look at cost of things, but actually have some discussion of the projects and their merits and those kind of things. So we're looking at next month sometime to do that with them. So just wanted to put that out for you all to know that potentially the 16th, which is a regular meeting, or the 23rd, which is a work session. So you all just need to think of that. And if you have a preference on one of those two Mondays, we'd like to keep it on a Monday when you all normally meet, just to make it easier for you all that way. So like I said, if you all have a preference over doing it after a regular meeting or a work session, I mean, it may be easier after work session because we have at times go into executive session, may not know the ending time as easily as we can control the agenda on work session days. So the 23rd may be the preference, but like I said, if you all will look at your calendars, just kind of let me know. I need to.
I'm out of town on the 23rd.
Okay.
So just as far as I'm concerned, 16th.
Okay.
So it's two with the majority fixing it.
16th's better for you too,
I'm just here serving the
I'm okay, either one.
okay. And Jan is gonna talk to her board at their next meeting too, get some things, so we'll continue talking to her, but we'll get something set up for next month.
Okay, council remarks? What, everything? So with that, we will be adjourned. All right, thank you all for coming.